frustration level, I gave a comprehension passage. And from that comprehension passage, the level of these children showed that they were. It could be FRY, F-R-Y, which you'll be learning later on about, or IRI. IRI is informal reading inventory. FRY is one of them, where we know how to place children according to the responses that they give to the questions. And those questions certainly will not be at just who, what, when, where, and how. And that brings us to the conclusion that 60% scored at the instructional level of 4th grade. However, what do you think the frustration level of those 20%, what caused them, teachers, to fall, 20% to fall at the frustration level? Where do you think they are definitely belonging now that we've done the testing? What level do you think they're in, besides it being frustration level? Where is their reading capacity? Where is their thinking and understanding at the higher level of understanding capacity? Why is it that I place them in the frustration level? Somebody talk to me. Ariel, can you explain that to me? Or anyone? It's so nice that I only have 9 of you. The other group is large. What do you think? Why do you think? Why are they at the frustration level? They're 4th graders. Why aren't they all at the instructional level? What's happening here? Well, those 20% of students are reading at 3rd grade level. So when I give them 4th grade material, I am frustrating them. They are turned off. They cannot decipher. They cannot do the word attack skills. They're not comprehending other than who, what, when, where, and how. And the test that I used, the assessment, showed me that they were still at 3rd grade level. So in the 4th grade level, teachers, and I'm going to ask you this again, they are frustrating. But if I were to give them 3rd grade reading, they would be at the independent level. Understand this, because this is very, very important. You see? Now, my explanation should lead you to the response that I'm looking for when I say that when I gave that body of 4th graders test, 20% of them were at the independent level, not instructional, not frustration. So what will you assume, teachers, that 20% of these students that I just declared that are at the independent level, where do you think they would be reading at? I hope you're following me.
Maybe a higher level, maybe like a 5th grade reading level or even middle school.
Correct. Yes, ma'am. Yes, all of you, whoever came up with that response, congratulations. You see now, in teaching children, and you're at the foundations right now, learning about theories, but we're going to learn a chapter is on assessment of supporting your teaching and learning. Why do we observe? Why do we assess? All that is in your program for this term. And I wanted to start you off with that. But I first wanted to talk about Bloom's taxonomy, because Bloom's taxonomy is the core to use the higher learning questions and the higher thinking questions, to be able to arrive at this. Now, you don't have to create this test. There are many, many IRIs, which we call informal reading inventory, that we use to place children. When you see that students are coming to you and you're a 3rd grade teacher, 2nd grade, they did not have a test from the state. They don't start testing them until they're in 3rd. They give them other assessments. So you don't have a basis from which to begin, because that score is not there. Because when you take tests from standardized, I should say, don't forget I use the word standardized, okay? Standardized tests from the state, that desegregates the skills and the comprehension and every vocabulary, grammar, etc. that you can base your beginning grouping of your children with. But when they did not take that standardized test from the state of Illinois in this regard, you must come up with a tool to be able to group your students. And you may end up grouping them. You'll say, this semester, but there are 4 levels. And what's the other one? Well, if there are 4 levels, you know that they will fall even lower than 3rd grade if they're in 4th. Some of them, but they're still frustrating at the instructional level. So your basis to be able to remember this is, what is the level or the grade level that you are expecting your children to be at? Okay, 3rd grade, I use 4th as an example, right? Listen to my question. Your instructional level of your children, you are hoping, will be at 3rd grade level. But I just told you that would be a perfect world. So when you are assessing your students, and I say 50% of your students showed by me questioning them using higher learning thinking skills that Bloom gives us, the verbs that we use to bring them to check where they're at. And they couldn't tell me any more than understanding about the story a little bit. And so the 50% fell into that category of instructional level, which should be 3rd grade. I'm ready now to teach 3rd grade skills to them because they are able to follow the standards of 3rd grade. So 50%. That leaves me with 50% out there, which I need to talk with you about. 30% of these children tested at frustration level in 3rd grade. 3rd grade, frustration level. That means 3rd grade, if 30% frustrated, that means I have to bring them down to 2nd grade reading and 2nd grade standards. You see? But then that 20% were ready to be in 4th grade reading, to be challenged a little higher than that 3rd grade reading level. Do you understand now how you do this? And there will be a time when you are in your program that you will have to be able to explain this. The levels that your children will be grouped in, even if you're in 7th grade, you're a 7th grade teacher. Some will fall in 6th, will test as 6 because 7th grade frustrates them. Some will be at the 7th grade level. And believe it or not, you will have a percentage that will be at 8th grade and 9th grade reading. Isn't it amazing that I gave the bulk of the number and percentage as instructional level? Because we're expecting, right, that the teacher prior to you getting these students covered the standards in that level below before they came to you, but not all of them mastered it. So we're going to give that teacher who had these children the benefit of the doubt. We don't want to say, oh, that teacher didn't teach anything. Perhaps she did introduce the standards, but half of them did not master it in 2nd grade. So we only got 50% that were prepared to be in 3rd grade. Now look at that picture though. Once children reach 3rd grade, they're supposed to already have mastered the mechanics of learning to learn how to read, right? They have learned their sight words. They have learned how to attack words, break them into syllables, use their sounds to arrive at that. They should have already learned how to use context clues. But that's the ideal classroom. I will tell you again, it doesn't matter that these children are in urban schools or suburban schools, except that the vocabulary in some of the affluent schools and stuff, the children are exposed to travel, they're exposed to going out more than the lower middle class and the low economic children. So we are attributing not that children in urban cities or large cities where you have a lot of low-income families, that these children are not able to learn. They have their IQ, maybe as high or higher than an affluent group of children. But the lack of environmental experience which impacts the learning
has not been provided because of economic standards. You see how they always put in economic status of families that contribute to learning of children. And I wanted to explain that to you. So any questions? Are we clear on why I wanted really now to make sure that you understand Bloom's taxonomy? You're going to be eating it, drinking it, speaking of it from now on as you move into your major. And this is what you're in now. And as you're creating your questions, and when you get your TPA, you will have this down to a science. So let's move on. I know we talked about you having your theories ready, but we didn't have it this week because of my fault. I had to cover some stuff that I found important. I sent I will repeat this, your PowerPoint of the chapters up to 10, so that when I cover a chapter, you know I already sent it to you to your email, and I'll try and post it in D2L later on today. I just had no time for that because I wanted to ensure you each got it in your email. Today, one of the chapters that I would like to go through, and please take notes. When we get to our midterm 8 weeks, the 8th week, I will just make sure that you get tested on what I have covered. I will never send you a test that I have not covered or explained thoroughly to you. And this is why I ask you, because I am so proud that you're going into early childhood. Don't let things distract you for this 1.5 hour I have you, because I find that the time is so short. Whereas my other section at 4:15 on Tuesdays, I have them for 3.5 hours, or 3 hours and 20 minutes. So I try to cover as much as I can with you. So tune in with me. When we use, and I'm on one of the chapters that we're supposed to cover, but we have here, we've talked about assessing children to know where they're at. When we test or we assess children, the first and foremost purpose, and this question will be asked to you in your area exams. Why do you test? Why do you assess? We assess to find out where.
Huh?
So I must assess, because if 50% of my students fail this exam, there is something not good. I didn't teach it, or I need to go and reevaluate the questions I asked. But if I have 70% of my students that are successful, it doesn't have to be 100% that they score, but they passed. They had a passing grade. Then I have to now separate those who did not succeed and did not pass the exam or the assessment, give them in that small group. That's why you break children up into small groups, okay? And give them more of a direct instruction, because sometimes children don't learn as well when they're in the whole class instructional section. And this is what
The heck?
is it because of Lev Vygotsky, who says the zone of proximal development, they learn faster and effectively if you put them and teach them from the beginning in a small group? Or did you put them in a small group because after you taught the whole class, you found out that there were still some that needed remediation? Do you see the two purposes of small grouping?
Yeah.
So I hope that that's clear. And the second part now is that now I've tested to see if I taught well. It's not I need to go reteach it. or if I have to group them and let the children that mastered the skill continue to practice. And then I go at my P table, they call it, or the bean table in the back, and I bring my 4 or 5 students, and I'm going to go through it again using different strategies, and the aha will be there. I see it now, teacher. I didn't understand it, teacher. And then I say, okay, are you ready to go back? How about you 3? You still need some support? And that's one form of using your small grouping. Okay? So, and again, another reason, let me make sure that I'm clear, because this is, I'm putting you in a classroom now. You're fully in charge, right? The other reason I'm going to group them is because I found out that there were 3 groups that I just spoke about. The instructional level group, the independent group, and the frustration group, right? So I'm not going to be continually ignoring the frustration group because they're so far behind and they need to be taught a level below in reading. I need to have that scheduled every single day that I'm going to give these children 20 minutes, 25 minutes of remedial reading. Do you see the purpose? Because if I ask you, why do we group children and why do we assess them? I need you to have this in your mind.
Right, to give them that support.
It is a support. So once I finish with them, I send them back to do an exercise of practice. And then now I'm bringing the independent group because they are tired. They don't want to read this easy story. So I'm going to give them a book or literature or a discussion or whatever it is at one level higher, because it's not fair to frustrate them and hold them back when they are ahead, they're independent. In 4th grade, they can do it without your help, but does that mean you're not going to teach them? No. You're going to give them a challenge at the higher level. And then you send them to their seats, and now you're looking at your instructional level, and that's where you're giving them the 3rd grade material. If it's a 4th grade, you're teaching them from that 4th grade level. You see? So 2 reasons again, to be able to address the group at the level they're at. And the next reason for small grouping is, as Lev Vygotsky tells us, that sometimes they need to be in the small group setting so that they can grasp what they missed when you did the whole class teaching. Does it make sense, what I just explained? Yes? Anyone did not understand?
Can you repeat that part again, please? The first thing you said? Like the part you said before the last part. Like the first reason they do small group.
The first reason is that we did have them now grouped into instructional, frustration, independent. So you will bring them to your P table, you know, the beam table with that little so that you can teach them at the level that they're at too, because you will have whole class teaching. But what happens with those children that are independent and you're doing reading? Are you going to still force them to read the 4th grade book when they are already at 5th grade level? They're independent in 4th grade. So yes, you can give them independent work, but you must teach them at that higher level because you don't want to get them to get bored and you don't want them to waste their time. The frustration group, you will bring them to the small group because you're going to give them remedial work so that hopefully they can move into the independent, in the instructional level. So we're trying to move. Let's follow my thoughts, my explanation. We will group them because the frustration group has to be brought to the instructional group. The instructional group has to be brought at least to the instructional level by the end of the year so they can go into 5th grade. But that independent group could move into even the 6th grade, 2 years ahead, because that's where an effective teacher comes into play. Imagine your child. Let's put yourself as a parent. And you know your child is doing great in 4th grade. She goes, Ma, I know that, Ma, and the teacher doesn't give us the book that I want to go into and learn more. And this happens in math. There are groups of students in 7th that don't need pre-algebra. They're done with that. They know it. Half the class, though, is at pre-algebra in 7th grade. What happens to those that know pre-algebra? Are you going to keep them there the whole year because it's easier for you to only teach the whole class at the same level? No. You're going to move them into algebra. So you're going to group them separate from the pre-algebra group. And those who are still not understanding pre-algebra will be your 3rd group that you will bring up so they at least get to learning the pre-algebra before they go to 8th grade, where they must then be at the algebra level. Do you understand how this works?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
So many teachers stagnate their children, their students. That's not fair. If I'm evaluating you as a principal, I want to see how you are addressing. This is called, you'll hear over and over this terminology, teachers, differentiated instruction. That does not just apply to special needs children. Differentiation of instruction means that you are addressing children, and if you can move them ahead from the level, the grade level, kudos to you. But if you are covering the standards of that grade level, that's what you're supposed to do. But then what happens to the children that are frustrated? Are you going to just let them keep falling deeper into the gap? No. Your objective is to work with them, give them the support, and maybe it's just that little explanation, or review the sight words, or show them how to attack the words. And then 2 or 3 will now be ready to move into the instructional level. But then I forgot to mention something to you. If you have the frustration group, it's a small group maybe, some have moved into the instructional group, and you continue to work with these 2, 3 children and they just don't get it, that's where your anecdotal begins. I reviewed the 5 sight words, they didn't get these, or Tuni didn't get it, and Ariel didn't get it. And no matter how they don't remember, then you start doing an anecdotal for 19 days, because there is something impeding them from learning. It is not your fault. You have done everything possible. You've found every different strategies to show them how to subtract 7 from 10, and you have the beads, the visuals, the manipulatives, and they still don't get the concept. Then you must seek some advice from the case manager. Maybe they won't put them for an IEP, but they'll give you some multiple tier system of support, which is the MTSS. So I can move on that, but I just want you for the next few minutes to tell me that when I started, and I like to tie things for why, I mean, I'm not getting covered, I'm not covering all that I want to cover from this chapter, but when I introduced Bloom's taxonomy, it was to show you that we must have questioning techniques that will catch children thinking, right? That will give them the opportunity to go beyond the who, what, when, where, and how. To give them what we call critical thinking skills, the opportunity to become critical thinkers. And from those levels, you can see that, and the example I gave. But then, what do we do with that? We can use that to now assess them. And why do we assess children? To know if they understood what we taught them, but to also know if I, Tuni Master, taught you 9 students what I was supposed to teach you. Now, if you have hurdles, not having listening skills, not even able to talk to me, to follow it because I can't see if you're attending, those are other circumstances. But we are adults. So now I am using the higher learning text question to be able to place you at the level of reading that you should be in, because it's not a perfect world. You could be in 7th grade and still reading at 6th grade or 5th grade, and that is the truth. And what will I do? Will I just let you sit in that room and lose more and more and then say, I hate school, I hate reading, I don't know how to read, and my teacher is not grouping me? Every teacher must have his or her groups ready. We say the decent number would be 3. It would be impossible, virtually impossible, for you to have 4 or 5 groups there, even though some of them may require, and if you don't have a teacher assistant, you cannot work that way. And even so, that teacher assistant will need you to have her know what to do. I have yet to know a class in all my years of experience, I've been teaching for over 50 years, that I can say every single student in this class is at the same level. Think about what I'm telling you. And then you can say, but master, there is something called gifted classrooms. And research has shown that if this classroom that you have been assigned to work in as a gifted teacher, a teacher of gifted students, I shouldn't say gifted teacher, a teacher of gifted students, you will find within those gifted students different levels of instruction. You see? And we did this when I was teaching the gifted program at Northeastern. They do put gifted under special education, which it can be very confusing to students who say, I'm not studying to be a special ed teacher. But no, 1 course or 2 in that special education for you, if you're seeking your endorsement, will be teaching gifted children. And that's one of the things we brought up, that within a homogeneous setting, which they consider all gifted, and they give me 16 students to teach, it's not heterogeneous, they think it's homogeneous, it's all, everyone falls into the same level, and this is a misnomer. Because there will be children in that same gifted room that will not be at the same level with the other. It could be that some are higher in the reading or some are lower in math, etc. So try to think about you now. The semester has hired you. You're in the classroom. You're looking to see the standardized test if it's already teaching 4th grade, but will be early childhood will not give you the answer. And that's why I must address this, because you will not have the standardized test to base your grouping upon. You will have to give them, and there are tools and assessments that the administration will provide for you. But from the very first week, you must put them in groups. You cannot wait for the second. Because we don't have 10 months of school for children in a grade. They have the most 6 months. When you remove the holidays, when you remove the winter days, when you remove the sick days, when you remove substitute coming in, children really don't get more than 6 months of instruction. And I can show that to you, because the exams don't come in June. The exams come in April or March. So I've just given you a whole lot to think about, right? I want you to jot this down before I let you go. And then first of all, let me remind you that I will post, one of your classmates went ahead, which was beautiful, and just looked up Bloom's taxonomy. You can do that on your own. But if you, and I don't have to send this diagram if you don't want it, but please remember that as we continue to talk, I'm going to have you match Bloom's with QAR, which will be another section of my instruction. But I want you to write these words for me on your notebook. As we do the methods of authentic assessment, which you do with young children to place them or to know where to put them because the standardized test is not there, I want you to be able to write these, to please write these words for me. You have observation as the first method, where you observe children just without them knowing how they interact, how they socialize, how they follow instructions, etc. And that is where you're watching the children. And specifically, you may not want to be watching all of them because you have a concern about Trini. Because you had her in the small group, she still didn't get. The second step would be the anecdotal record that you will keep. And that's where you're starting to decide, I'm going to watch Tuni on Monday. I'm going to watch her on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Thursday, I will watch her at 9 in the morning. You change the time to make
You
it
do
valid.
it. Use your
And you bring
fingers.
your anecdotal of 19 days.
Why are you crying? Use your
You will
fingers.
eventually bring this to your perspective.
Why are you
The next one is
scared,
what we call
man?
the running record.
This is your
But as
test,
you're
right?
observing
Go away.
Trini,
I'm
you're
in
writing
class.
verbatim. And that takes a long time, right? But it is more specific. I saw that when she was invited to play or to work in a group, she just totally closed down. And I'm writing, explaining. It's not a checklist. Checklist is fast. But I found that I needed to do that anecdote, that running record. And then the other step that we will cover more thoroughly is the event sampling. Here, I'm going to focus on a behavior during a particular event, recess, or science time, or center time. I am focusing specifically, and I am naming it in my observation. That's called event sampling. And the time sampling is that how often does Tuni go off on her own? How often does she disconnect? You see? And that part is called the time sampling. Please don't get confused, because I will emphasize this more as we meet next time. And then we have something called the rating scale, which contains a list of descriptors for you, a set of behaviors. Was she making eye contact? Was she able to follow instructions? You see, now we're bringing it to the scale, the rating scale. And that's easy. After you've done the methods of these authentic assessments, now you're using a rating scale, and then that checklist will be able to help you with that. I hope that I have started and then explained it and brought you to a closure, so that when you walk away from today's class, that you are not dangling out there and saying, wow, she started with Bloom's taxonomy, where did she take me, and why did we have to learn about Bloom's taxonomy? For the rest of your educational profession, Bloom's will be in your life. Bloom and Bloom, Bloom is his wife. Howard Gardner will be in your personal life. Those are the Howard Gardner's theory of intelligence and how they learn, and who else? Oh, the theorists and what they came up with. That's why those three major things we bring to you as foundations. I know it's only 1:21. I've talked the whole time. Questions? Clarifications?
I have a question.
Sure.
The little pyramid that you were explaining for the Bloom taxonomy, what was that you were saying that should be added but wasn't part of it?
Yes, the synthesis. And the synthesis is after an analysis, the synthesis. And that is the one that we see more commonly as the next step after analysis. Now we analyzed, we broke everything apart. Now let's bring it together.
Okay.
That part I didn't explain to you, Victoria, and I'm glad you brought it up. We did not say why we synthesized. You all analyzed why the child fell in the water, right? Why she screamed, why the brother had to jump in. And you analyzed that she had no life jacket. And to synthesize it is where you would say, wow, if these children were well prepared, you know all the stuff that happened, this child would not have fallen and splashed her hands all over and screamed, because she would have known how to swim. And parents probably would be watching. And thirdly is, in this day and age, we're synthesizing now, and we're bringing you to the evaluation level, which I didn't emphasize. And now we bring you to this age, and the child says, in today, if these two children are in the water in a canoe, a stranger can come and steal them away. This is the mind of the second child or third grade child telling you this. And so this was such an unsafe situation for these children. And a child or two would come up with that. Why would, and that's what we call evaluative level, the critiquing of the author and the story. And so if I had time, I'd give you the analysis of the story, The Pearl, but The Pearl is for older children. So, and so it's the same concept, where the child says, why would she go back? Why would she want to be invited to a ball of rich people and then have to borrow a necklace, and then she loses it? If she was satisfied with her and her husband's standard of living, Why would she want to be something she's not? And then that was a 7th grade analysis of the pearl, the passage. So we do this at different levels. What we're doing here is giving you foundations of learning how to teach, right? Because you will come with more and more as you get the experience. But we have to send you off beyond the textbook material. And I have the opportunity to do this because, and I'm not putting so much Mother Pin and Rose in me, I've had the experience. I have 3 master's degrees, 2 out of the 3, the 3rd one is administration, delves deeply with language arts, reading, literacy. And I want to bring this to you, that the most important and most difficult subject to teach, as you will be confronted with in the classroom, is teaching children how to learn, how to read, and bring them to that level of critical thinkers. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to combine the book and the text and a whole lot of stuff so that when you walk into that classroom, you say, I did not learn this at the university. What am I going to do? So if you have no questions, I'm going to let you go, and then be prepared to present your theorists on Tuesday next week, and I will cover as much as I can. And I would like to thank you for being a part of my afternoon. Okay? Yes? Are we good?
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. I'm going to put down that next Tuesday we're going to do theorists. You need to send this pyramid to you, or you're going to do it on your own? Should I post that for you in Itua? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to copy it in my flash. And make sure you get a copy. Have a wonderful afternoon, students. I took it. Wait, I need to know who I didn't write down that's not here today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anybody not here today? I'm sorry to put you through this. I should have had that ready. Let me see. I wrote down, if I don't call your name, tell me. I have Latoya, Alondra, Yesenia, Victoria, Diana, Ariel, Hannah, Sarah. Who else am I missing?
Mandy.
Mandy, that's Mandy. Thank you. We're good now. Have a wonderful afternoon.
And
Thank
Yvonne?
you. I got, and Yvonne, yeah, I got, did you say Yvonne?
Yes, Evie, me.
Oh, I got you. I got you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye, honey. Have a good, all of you have a wonderful afternoon. It's a pleasure having you with me in my class.
Professor, can you stay after? I just wanted to talk to you about something.
Sure. I'll let everyone else disconnect so we can have privacy.